That's why that seems strange to me.
Meow, it's Huples cat. In 2018, I reviewed a Swedish emergency preparedness booklet. The Swedish government in 1961 released a booklet that they gave to all of their population, telling them how to deal with war. Wow. Just been joined by my executive producer. The booklet, in case of crisis or war, was sent to every Swedish home. At the time, it made a big stir in North American prepping. The booklet has been sent to Swedish homes every 6 years or so since 1946. It wasn't sent for a specific reason or for a specific change in threat level. It's sent because their government sends it to them all the time, so at least they have basic information and can be prepared for any crisis or war. SHTF, economic collapse, alien invasion, supervolcanic eruption, killer pandemics, martial law, etc., etc., has not yet happened.
Welcome to the BBC News Desk. We have breaking news of a serious incident between Russian and NATO forces near the coast of Latvia. Although the details are uncertain, early reports indicate that a Russian surveillance aircraft was fired upon by naval vessels of NATO forces operating in that region after apparently straying into Latvian sovereign airspace. It's unclear at this stage whether the Russian aircraft was shot down or not. This incident comes in the wake of a similar event some time ago, in which 2 Russian pilots were killed after being shot down by Turkish surface-to-air missiles near the border with Syria. It's not known what caused this latest incident or at exactly what time the conflict took place, but it is believed that it happened earlier today and that Russian forces have returned fire. And we do now have footage of the conflict from the region. This is the scene of Russian warships based directly off the coast of Finland. These are truly extraordinary scenes. Russian warships firing directly at US and British forces from NATO in what now must surely represent a state of war.
And yet the Swedish government is continuing to waste money by sending this book to everybody. Why? Well, I'm sure the usual doom and fear porn channels are saying it's a sign of imminent World War III. They've been saying this for quite a long time. It is not a sign of World War III, it is an update.
Has Sweden asked its citizens to prepare for the World War III? This claim has taken the internet by storm. On November 18, 2024, the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, or MSB, began distributing 5.2 million copies of a guide titled "In Case of Crisis or War" to households. On the same day, Joe Biden allowed Ukraine to use its long-range missiles in Russia. Social media was quick to put the two together. In particular, this Mail Online headline was shared wildly. So, let's unpack it. Contrary to the claims, this pamphlet has nothing to do with Biden's recent announcement. It was actually in the works since March this year, which is months before discussions about long-range missiles in Ukraine ever began. Experts agree it's a routine update. Niklas de Klung, a professor at Umeå University, puts it plainly. This isn't an escalation. It's a business as usual for Sweden's defense strategy. Experts note that new edition emphasizes both crisis and war, reflecting Sweden's commitment to preparing its citizens for all kinds of emergencies. And no, this is not a nuclear war survival guide. The booklet covers everything from extreme weather to cyber attacks. Nuclear threats? They're mentioned once, under seeking shelter. Sweden isn't panicking, and neither should you. The guide is about readiness, not fear. Let's not the sensational headlines cloud the facts.
The 32 pages available in this booklet will be available in a separate video with my commentary on it. You can also get your own copy by looking in the description. The booklet tells you to keep it in a safe place, and then on page 3 gives you this message. To all residents of Sweden, we live in uncertain times. Armed conflicts are currently being waged in our corner of the world. Terrorism, cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns are being used to undermine and influence us. To resist these threats, we must stand united. If Sweden is attacked, everyone must do their part to defend Sweden's independence and our democracy. We build resilience every day together with our loved ones, colleagues, friends and neighbours. In this brochure, you learn how to prepare for and act in case of crisis or war. You are part of Sweden's overall emergency preparedness. Well, my government, the government of Canada, doesn't really see me as part of their war machine. Now, the Swedish government's claiming they have war in their part of the world, which clearly they do not. They're not in the Middle East, and they're definitely nowhere near the Ukraine. Last time I checked, Denmark and Norway and Finland were relatively peaceful. But it's interesting to see what the threats are as far as the Swedish government's concerned. If you look at page 5, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, terrorism and sabotage. These types of attack may occur at any time. Some are happening here and now. Nice claim. Can I have an example of that, please? The booklet says you shouldn't just take things at face value. I'm not taking that at face value. I'd like some examples of that, please. Like the booklet in 2018, every Swede between the age of 16 and 70 will be in the military or assisting the military in the event of war. And nobody in Sweden is ever to give up the fight, no matter what. You know, currently about a third of American males have got diabetes or obesity to the point where they couldn't serve at any capacity. Now, as I said, I'm going to go through this booklet in detail, but I just want to point out a couple of things. At the bottom of page 5, they have the other serious threats. We will also need to strengthen our resilience against other serious risks and threats, including, and they list 4. 3 of them I agree with. 1 of them I'm kind of scratching my head. Extreme weather events? Totally. Dangerous pathogens? Of course. Outages across important IT systems? Obviously. The more complicated the world gets, the more vulnerable it becomes. Organised crime? The Swedish mafia? Can anybody in Sweden tell me? Do you have a lot of organised crime? Both Finland and Norway have also brought out booklets around about the same time and for the same reason. Norway, like Sweden, has given everybody a full booklet of 20 pages, which they've made available in English. Finland has an abbreviated version of their document of 13 pages only in English. But if you go to the Finnish preparedness site, you'll find large amounts of information in English. The pages from all 3 booklets will be available in a separate slideshow video with my commentary. I thought, in fairness, how could I judge these 3 booklets? I'm not Nordic, nor am I unaware of emergency preparedness, so I got Kitty to read them. From somewhere in darkest Finland.
So just working through this, one funny thing is iodine tablets as recommended, because they have a 3-day supply of things, and very basic things, and then they throw in iodine tablets.
Do you know why?
Well, for nuclear issues, but that's why that seems strange to me.
Right, if you can't be evacuated, you need 3 to 6 months.
And you only have 3 days supply of food and water, according to this, but you need iodine tablets? That seems a strange thing to put on there. Especially without any direction.
Does it make sense to you, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I suppose if a crisis happens and everyone has a bit supplied because they've thought about it, it's a good idea.
Would it encourage you to do that if you got it?
Yeah, I mean, at least it might make you think that there is some degree of risk at all times, so maybe it's best if you have thought about it and have a few things in place.
That one is a short version of it. Most of their stuff's online, so the English one anyway. Thank you very much. Swedish Kitty decides to get prepared.
It's pretty good, actually, this one. It's more involved than the Finland product. It's a good start. They even talk about excrement, what foods you should have, what waters. They'd rather have you prepared for a week. The whole country should know some of this stuff because apparently they're all conscripted. They all must rise. They must never surrender.
Never surrender.
Yeah. It's good.
Good? Nothing false?
Well, I mean, there's maybe a few little questionable things. I'm not sure why you need blueberry and rose hips tea, but, you know.
Vitamin C, I'm guessing. If you're ever in IKEA, maybe you should get some.
The collective security places you're to go to, the civil defense shelters, may be repurposed, so they might be like a school or something like that. And it says they must within 48 hours sort of reset. That maybe cause a bit of chaos, I guess.
No, they have strong plans for that.
They have strong plans for that. Yeah.
They have a lot of basements that are built as fallout shelters.
Right.
Doesn't really tell you what you're going to do after the week, though, does it?
No.
That's the biggest problem.
But,
with a lot
you
of
know,
these.
they don't know what situation they're dealing for, so it has to be a bit generic.
Right.
And these are generic instructions. It's never going to be bad to have water and food in place.
Would you act on that if you were Swedish and you got that in the mail?
I mean, I think it's important. There's a few things you're supposed to know. Maybe you would keep this somewhere near at hand in case there's a signal warning, because the signal warnings you might not remember.
Well, they test them every month in the cities.
Test them every month.
Yeah. Like you say, there's no point having a signal go out if people aren't used to it.
No.
So that's why they
test
test
it.
it.
Knowing it. It asks something of you, but it's also supplying information, so it's good.
Good. All right. Thank you. Meanwhile, in Norway, Viking Kitty decides to get well prepared.
So they definitely had things in common and yet diverged, I'd say.
What do you think of Norwegian?
Norwegian was pretty basic. It was okay, but you know, it had pictures, which are kind of pleasant, I guess.
Pictures are good.
Pictures are good. They all have slightly different recommendations, I suppose.
Do you feel more prepared having read them?
Not really. Oh, having money around, talking to people if you live in a place where you have shared space about doing things, making yourself aware of what sort of emergency sirens you might hear, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know what emergency sirens I would hear here.
Well, you get your phone alert if the phone
You
service
get a
is
phone
working.
alert
But,
now, but that's recent. A phone alert is recent.
But in a nuclear war, the phone's probably not going to work anyway.
No. So it might get people thinking a bit to have this guide.
Right. I mean, if you tried to get this as the crisis starts or a war starts, you'd probably have a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so maybe have this somewhere in the cupboard.
Yeah, it's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Kitty.
This has been a Nordically prepared Tiny Terrier production, 2024.
End scene. Not exactly fair. Kitty does know a lot about preparedness by osmosis. And as I said, they're very similar, but there are some differences. On page 6, Sweden says, have food, water, medicine, everything for a week so you don't have to leave your house for a week. On page 5, Finland says, have stuff for 3 days. Not a week, 3 days. However, Norway on pages 5 and 8 gets more to the point, where it says have everything for a week at a minimum. And I think that's an important caveat. Because in Finland, what are you going to do after 3 days? Overall, I have to congratulate the Nordic governments for sending these to the population as hard copies. I think that's really important. Just having stuff available on the web is not a good idea when you're talking about emergency preparedness. Having more detailed stuff on the web is a good idea. And all 3 countries do that. That the governments of Australia, Canada, the United States and the United Kingdom do not make any attempt whatsoever to send us basic preparedness information that we can use in keeping our homes for emergencies shows clearly that our governments care very little about the population they're serving and care more about money. If you know nothing at all about emergency preparedness, each of these 3 booklets is a really good place to start. If you obeyed and acted on the things each of these booklets tell you to do, you'd have 3 to 7 days, possibly longer, where no matter what the crisis or war was, you should be okay as long as you weren't killed. It gives you some breathing space to allow your governments to react. At worst, it means you don't have to suffer as everybody else is suffering and can make some plans. It may be unrealistic to be a prepper, but it's very realistic to be a preparedness individual, to have 1 or 2 weeks supply of food and water and other sundries in your house to protect you if supply stops for that period of time. But then I thought, when these drop through their mailbox, how many people are just going to glance at it, recycle it, throw it in a drawer, forget about it? How many people are actually going to go to the detailed lists in here and go and buy the stuff or get the stuff so they actually are prepared? Au revoir! This has been a well-prepared Nordic Terrier production 2024.